Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel Kalanati. Today's video is one that I've wanted to do for a while, but I felt rather hesitant about doing. I'm just gonna jump in and do it today. And this is my recommendations for science fiction novels that have queer protagonists. Main characters specifically that are somehow in the text clearly shown to be gay, lesbian, bisexual, etc. And this is not by any means a definitive list. It's nowhere near complete and I've certainly forgotten some. This is just science fiction novels that I own a physical copy of. So if you notice any that I have left off of my list, any glaring omissions or corrections, because some of these I haven't read in a couple of years, please comment down below and enlighten me and other people. You're going to notice that this list is overwhelmingly by women. I think I only have 2 male authors on this list, and this is a reflection of my own personal tastes, that I have been selecting science fiction by women, and that I enjoy books by women on average a bit more than books by men. But also, in my experience, I have found that it seems that women are more likely to write queer characters in science fiction, especially protagonists, and once again, in my opinion, to write them well, sensitively, and in depth. And if there are male authors that are doing this, because I'm sure there are, I need to know what they are so I can go read those books. The first book on my list is To Like the Lightning by Ada Palmer. In some ways, the biological sex, the gender, and the orientations of characters may be spoilers because they're very cleverly hidden and then revealed to you in the series. But I don't think it gives too much away to say that Mycroft Canner, the narrator of the series, is queer. His lover is a man, and their relationship is kind of destructive, but really influential in his life. There are also other major characters in this book and in the series that are queer, they're gay, bisexual, lesbian, etc. I debated putting The Female Man by Joanna Russ on this list because it has 4 main characters and only one of them is lesbian, but because those women are all essentially the same woman just from different parallel worlds, I think this probably counts. I forget the name of the one who is lesbian, but she is from a world where there are no men, which is a recurring theme in feminist science fiction. It's going to come up at least one more time on this list, but I had to recommend this one because it's done well. It is a really good book. It is strange in some parts, and the writing style can make it difficult, but this is one of those feminist science fiction novels dealing with gender and sexuality that's well worth reading. You all know that I love Emma Newman's science fiction, and Planetfall has to be on this list. The main character, Ren, is in love with a woman, the Pathfinder Lee Soo-mi, and follows her to an alien planet. I particularly like the portrayal of Ren's sexuality here because it is so very matter of fact. She falls in love with a woman and follows her because of that, and I don't think it's presented in a way that's any different from other relationships in the series. Then I have 2 books by Jo Walton to share with you. The first is My Real Children. This is a standalone kind of soft science fiction novel about how a woman's life is very different in 2 timelines based on a decision she makes. In one, she chooses to marry a man and the world is good, but her marriage is terrible. In the other, she doesn't choose to marry him and she ends up living a very happy life with a woman and having a family, but the world is terrible. This is one of my least favorite books by Walton, I have to admit. My only real reason for not liking this book so much as her other work is that I felt it was too rushed. It could easily have been a longer book or a duology, and I think that would have done better service to the story, but it is regarded well for its treatment of gender and the main character's sexuality, and it won the James Tiptree Jr. Award with another book that's also on this list. let me deviate to that other book actually, which is The Girl on the Road by Monica Byrne. This won the James Tiptree Jr. Award in the same year that My Real Children did. It has been a couple of years since I read this, and I don't remember the exact particulars of the main character's relationship, except that I do believe that she is lesbian and she was in love with a trans woman. As I recall, there's a pretty terrible murder at the beginning, and the psychological impact of that is what shakes the main character. She doesn't seem to remember very well what happened, and she tries to cross the ocean between India and Africa on a pontoon bridge, and her story is going to intersect with another woman's story. Getting back to Jo Walton, the other book I recommend by her with a queer main character is Farthing. This is the first book in the Small Change series, and each book has like multiple POV characters, but the one character who ties them all together is a police detective named Carmichael, and he is gay. He lives in fascist England, kind of after World War II, but Hitler wasn't stopped. He was just kind of stalled by this political set in Britain, and now England is falling into fascism as well. Carmichael's story is challenging to read because his relationship is completely illegal and he is persecuted, as well as the people he is attempting to help escape from fascism. This series is dark and right now maybe too relevant to what's going on in the world, but really worth reading. I have to mention Samuel R. Delany on a list like this, and I've chosen Dhalgren. This is a 1970s science fiction novel that is kind of controversial. It's a beast at about 850 pages long, and it is a difficult and surreal read. It's like climbing a mountain. I thought it was very well worth reading because it is very well written, but I admit it doesn't make a lot of sense sometimes. This makes the list because the main character, a man named Kid, is bisexual, very explicitly so. There is no way to not figure this out. He has relationships with women and with men, including a polyamorous relationship, and very clearly Dahlgren is about the counterculture of the 1960s. It is about gay rights, gender, race, and a whole host of other things from the 60s and 70s that are still relevant today. But Delany writes unabashedly and unashamedly about queer characters, and if you want to experience that, I think Dhalgren is a good one to pick up. The Telling by Ursula K. Le Guin. As far as I know, this is the only science fiction novel by Le Guin that has a lesbian main character, and I was really pleasantly surprised when I picked up this book because I did not expect for the main character to be lesbian and Indian American. So she's a woman of color, and she is not straight. Now her relationship with her female lover is not front and center in the story, but it is recalled in flashbacks, and it is a large part of this woman's characterization. I also love this book for what it says about preserving knowledge and preserving culture in the face of oppression and censorship. I feel like I've mentioned Nicola Griffith's work a lot recently, and I'm not gonna stop because she is amazing. First, I want to mention Ammonite. This is that other book I said I was gonna mention about a setting where all the men are dead or absent, and so it's a completely female society. This is an idea that is used so much probably because writers find they have to get the men out of the equation in order to explore what an all-female society would be like and how women would relate to each other without men around. This is set on a planet where a virus kills all the men and some of the women, so only women can survive there. The main character has a lesbian relationship, and I love how matter-of-factly her love and her friendship with women is presented. The other book by Nicola Griffith I have to mention is Slow River. Almost the entire cast of characters are female, and the main character is lesbian, as are, well, of course, some of the other characters in the book. She has multiple relationships with women. Some of them are destructive and abusive, and this book can go to some very dark places, but as I keep saying, it is very well worth reading, and the characterization is beautiful. Lumina New Moon by McDonald. Now, my criteria for this list is that the main character had to be queer, and I don't recall there being one specific protagonist that stands out amongst all of the others in this book, but like the entire cast is queer, and the two male characters that I remember most vividly from this are definitely bisexual, and I want to mention this book on this list for that reason. Some much needed representation of bisexuality here. And like I said, it seems like most of the people who live on the moon in this book are not heterosexual, but it's the bisexuality that I come back to, and the fact that like contracts between families can be established with marriages between men and women and women and women and men, which is so different from what you usually read. It has been so long since I've talked about God's War by Kameron Hurley in a video. It's been so long since I mentioned it at all, but it has to be on this list. I think this kind of straddles the line between science fiction and fantasy because it's very SF nil and being on another planet and stuff, but some of the technology, like the bug-powered technology, seems more like magic, and I think one of the characters is called a magician, but I think it qualifies for this list of science fiction. The main character is bisexual, and this is kind of like Ammonite and the female man, where men are taken out of the equation somewhat. There's been this centuries-long war. It's a religious war, and the men are sent to the front lines to fight, to die. They're cannon fodder. And the women stay behind in the cities. They run everything. They run the country and the world, and they form families with each other. And the main character has relationships with men and with women. It is about war, and the main character is not a pleasant woman, which I think is a good reason to include her on this list, that she's not a perfect, sympathetic human being. She does some terrible things. She is a soldier, a bounty hunter, and sometimes not very smart, but she's a real person. And last but not least is one of the most recent books I have read in science fiction that has a queer main character, and that is China Mountain Zhang by Maureen F. McHugh. The main character of this is a Chinese Hispanic man named Zhang who is gay, and it is illegal to be gay. And that is an ongoing trouble in his life where he wants to have relationships. He's not averse to casual sex, but he probably wants something more, and it is dangerous to act on what he wants. That's it for this list of my recommendations. As I said before, I'm really well aware this is not a definitive list and it has some glaring omissions. For example, there are no stories here that I know of that have trans or asexual main characters, and I particularly would really like to read some science fiction with asexual and well done main characters. So if you have any recommendations that would help fill the gaps in this list, please tell me and other people in the comments down below. I hope this list has been helpful to you in some way, whether it's because you're just curious about this topic or if you are trying to read more diversely to broaden your reading horizons, kind of like I am. So thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.